Welcome back.
Welcome back, family, to Hear Us Out. I'm Renee,
I am Kyrie.
and I hope that everyone has had a happy New Year so far,
Happy
a
holidays, Happy
happy
New Year.
holidays, a happy New Year, and I want to say thank you once again to our longtime subscribers who have been with us since the very beginning,
hmm
and to those who are finding us for the first time in the new year. Thank you, and make sure to subscribe and to continue to hear us out.
Thank you.
hmm
And to start us off, it's a new year.
hmm
The, things have changed.
Well, it's another year. We'll see
And
how new it actually
yeah,
is.
you know, another year. And now I feel the need to try to go back and start from the beginning
hmm
and see how things have changed over time and
hmm
how the ideas have evolved.
hmm
And this whole channel started off with a conversation about Afrocentricity,
Right.
which we said was the basis, the true trunk where all the other branches,
Right.
held on to
hmm
for us.
Right. Correct.
And we talked about how Afrocentricity, it is a weapon, it's a tool, it's a framework, and all that stuff. And but we've also, at least the framework has grown,
hmm
throughout our conversations, through just analyzing different things, and before we started, doing Messiah, and even during doing
Right.
Messiah, we had this basis of belief,
hmm
and like I said, giving those people who decide to oppose you, or decide may be too strong of a word, but who oppose you,
Right.
you know, giving them the benefit of the doubt, or
hmm
believing them, or having that olive branch at least, right? And throughout Dune, we talked. It was kind of the examination of the fallacy of leadership. That's what
hmm
started off the entire discussion.
Right.
And Dune goes all over the place, and
Right.
how it analyzes things, but
hmm
it kind of ended. It ended with that. It
hmm
ended with, you know, with with the leader's vision
hmm
coming to an end, and
Right.
that being a good thing, because now it allows for everyone else to
Right.
contribute
That's
to
right. To do their
molding
work. Right.
and creating,
right.
this new world, instead
uh-huh.
of it being this one person.
That's right.
So now I think it's good to ask, how has Afrocentricity changed for you?
I don't think it has necessarily changed because I
Mm,
still believe that it is a tool, that
hmm
it is a way of understanding and recontextualizing and looking at things from a different or another prism
hmm
to see things, in that vein. And it's not ignoring, it's not lying, and it's not this one linear lateral way to interpret.
hmm
I still feel that Afrocentricity is that. It still lends itself to that. The change, like I said, I don't necessarily feel that it has changed, but if anything, I feel that it's much more encompassing.
mm.
If anything,
The scope
that
has widened.
yeah, correct. That it includes a lot more than what I feel that folks think that it would include.
Mm.
You know that it looks at it looks at the total. At least it tries to. To look at the problems and solutions in with a certain totality.
But
Because you know solving one problem.
mhm.
Well, you're not ever really solving one problem.
Yeah,
You're always it's always
because nothing,
is ever one.
yeah, it's
Right.
never existing in a vacuum.
Right.
Everything's interrelated.
Right. And so I think for a long time, before we really got into where we are, and for me, especially when I was younger, I used to always think that it was one problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that one problem, it's that it's not just one problem. And so
Well,
many of them.
that one problem lends itself to a greater, emphasis.
Right, of course. And so when I first started in this type of work, which was in the 90s, really, started, doing this type of work, I was always focused. My focus had always been just that one problem,
Mm-hmm.
and in solving that, well, at least in trying to solve that one problem, it always lends itself, to looking at other things. It's as if you're forced to. And like we've talked about it, you can walk with it or you
Mm-hmm.
can walk against that. And so,
Uh, Early on, you had mentioned a totality.
yes. Mhm.
What is that? What is the totality in which what has widened? What particular part of the Afrocentric perspective has widened, to allow for this encompassing of or a greater view on the whole of the question?
Okay. At one time, I used to think that um, history was really this. This is what happened first.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happened second,
Yeah.
and it was just everything just lined up.
Yeah.
Okay. And if something occurred outside of that,
Outside of that narrative.
yeah, outside of that narrative,
Mm-hmm.
it was just it wasn't worthy, or it didn't make the impact that I think that it should have made for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say now that I understand that there wasn't one thing going on.
Could you give an example?
Um, let's talk about. Um, I remember saying. I
Mm-hmm.
remember telling you this. I remember at one time, if you had told me, or just told black people in general, just told me
Mm-hmm.
that black people sold y'all into slavery, right? The Africans are the ones who sold y'all into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I would think that you were stupid.
Mm-hmm.
That's a stupid comment to make. That's stupid. And I remember saying, I probably held on to that for like maybe 20 years. I don't know how long it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a child.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's stupid. That makes absolutely no sense. Right? And
We weren't sold, we were stolen.
we were stolen. We were never sold. And
Mm-hmm.
we would never do that. There was no way. I'm like, if we were sold, then what was the return?
Mm-hmm.
Well, look around. I'm like, how do you sell your
People.
your people and you're here? And
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that I was saying that like
Yeah.
child. You understand me? Now I understand that it wasn't just this. It wasn't that we weren't. It's not that we weren't stolen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not that we weren't sold. It was a culmination of
It's a bit
events.
more complicated.
It's a little more. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that retort. I mean, the line about yeah, the chiefs of they sold y'all. They sold y'all. It was always put in a framework as blaming
Mm-hmm.
us for why
We're here.
we're here. As to make it seem like we as the ones who were brought here,
Mm-hmm.
that well, we should just deal with anything that has happened to us because the people didn't want you anyway. It was
Mm-hmm.
always in that
Yeah, in
that
that vein.
color
Yeah.
that conversation would come up. And so I feel like I've opened that type of framework. Let's put
Mm-hmm.
it that way. I don't look at it as the punishment that those who that they look at it as.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's more of
So for you,
and understanding of anything. Mm-hmm.
uh, the the Afrocentric perspective on history
Mm-hmm.
has widened, which has allowed for recontextualization
Mm-hmm.
of all of those questions
Mm-hmm.
and answers that we used to have
Right.
about how we got here
Mm-hmm.
and what to do
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Right. And like I've mentioned to you,
Mm-hmm.
is that you have to understand that when I was younger, and I'm quite sure for those who were older than me when they were younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it was pretty much, black people ain't shit.
Mm-hmm.
You come from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted you, and y'all, you just blah.
Yeah. Now you're just here,
You just
taking up
yeah,
space.
take up space and you're aggravating and go to the ghettos. That's all,
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew like that never
Sat
it
right.
never sat right with me. And for those who are obviously who are older than me, I know it didn't sit right with them. And so it's always been this constant striving to prove to prove folks wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's that we're not we're not what you said we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a great history. Look at us. We're like just before I even got into, studying I'm gonna say African history from the continent, right?
Yeah.
Because when I was young, we used to do our Black History projects, like all of the great men and women just from right here on this soil
Mm-hmm.
and the things that we have done, So I knew that something was wrong with what was trying to
With
be
how the
drilled, yeah,
story
of
is
how the
being
story
presented.
was being presented. And so you get angry,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Y'all want to play these games like we were savages? You all didn't even wash your asses. That was it was always the response of
No,
we are
we're not the savages.
we're
You're the
not savages,
savages.
you're the savages. And
Yeah.
our history is great, and I'm gonna show y'all where y'all ain't shit. It was
Mm-hmm.
that type of response.
Yeah.
So when you're driven by
It was a weapon.
yes, but at the time you're not thinking of it as a weapon. You're thinking of it as yeah. I would say for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think of it as a weapon, but I felt like it was my shield defense that
Mm-hmm.
I could come back on you with anything. You tell me something about some Greek, Roman, whatever. We got the Egyptians over here.
Mm-hmm.
We have Axum over here. We have the Ashantis over here. I can
Yeah.
I can always come back with that. And then in talking about because we're from New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Say, bro, you can't tell me anything about us. We are the culture.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing without us. I don't care if we were forced, volunteered, freed, however you want to put it. Every brick from on Bayou Road, all of the ironwork, everything that you love about this city is from us. Even the pralines that you all want to lay claim to. That's us. That was our sisters working in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Making you come starving. You had so I was
Mm-hmm.
always looking at it from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective to be combative,
Yeah.
you know, and I think I still have that.
I'm perspectively also still have that.
I still have that. That hasn't gone anywhere. But I look at it now for us, how we use that and more. And to understand that just because, you know, to acknowledge first that yes, what our role in world history, and I think that's the thing that I'm going to say expanded
Yeah.
my my understanding in Afrocentricity because I think, and I could be wrong, I think that's what Molafi Asante wanted us to do. Not, and he even says, we are not just we're not observers.
Mm-hmm.
We are active. We are participants in our history. He didn't say we are only participants in good history or whatever you want. That we were active. We are active now in this world. We are active with all of our successes, all of our failures, all of our faults, and all of
Because
our
I
greatness.
guess because with this systemic loss of agency, it's easy to fall into that trap of just thinking that all we've ever done is respond.
That's right.
That we've never, like you said, never actually been an active participant in shaping our, fates and our, our cultures, and
Right,
that all it's
because
ever
so
been
much
has been
right because so much of
responding and
history
moving in accordance and in opposition to,
right
you know,
because so much of the history that's been put out there now is what has been done to us.
hmm
And I think that we have approached it in that way. What a group or what that system, what it has done to us.
mm.
And we have, even continue to interpret our experience and our history as what is something that is done to
As a
us
bludgeon.
as a versus, you know, our action
hmm
in our history as not this one way thing.
I would say that right. I think that mindset is very evocative of or emblematic
Mm-hmm.
of why there is this identity crisis within the black community.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you only look at our history as, as a weight that has fallen onto you,
Mm-hmm.
as a hammer
Mm-hmm.
that's been driven into your head, it's easy to want to throw it away,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like you said, that loss of agency,
Mm-hmm.
that loss of control is systemic, and it is generational.
Right.
And it seems like every time you go back, the further you look, the further you analyze, it's the same story all
Mm-hmm.
over again, of us being defeated, of
Right.
us being routed, of
Mm-hmm.
us having to move and respond in a way that is not healthy and or conducive to the ideal of self that we want to maintain,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of these things seem to take away from that. So there's this. So when we say we want to, for us to take pride in our history, to take pride in all these things, it comes up against that shame
Mm-hmm.
that we hold on to because of what has happened to
Right.
us and our history. So it's easy. Well, I won't say easy,
Mm-hmm.
but your mind when you're it kind of slips into that crisis, into
Mm-hmm.
that identity crisis where you're walking against,
Mm-hmm.
where you're trying to ignore, where you're pushing it down and and trying to just move on,
Mm-hmm.
because in confronting that history you feel like, or taking pride in it is like, saying taking pride in shame
Mm-hmm.
and taking pride in
Right. And
in,
I
in, in in this thing that has been levied against you.
right because what has been happening over the years, decades, is right. Like how much I love slave narratives,
hmm
and I always say, and I still contend that they were the greatest of people. They were the smartest ones because they gave us all of the answers on how to deal with what is at afoot.
hmm
There was no fantasy. It was all reality. They were the least delusional
mm
of the people we have ever had. Because when we were, I guess, the greats of the greats, and we can't be stopped. No, 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 no. Nobody
hmm
can be defeated. We can do whatever. You know, these people who were enslaved against their will,
hmm
they dealt and discussed and wrote about a reality that there was no color.
hmm
There was no shame. I think this is why, like, take Frederick Douglass, right?
Yeah.
And his relationship with Sandy Jenkins, right? Sandy, at no time, like, Sandy Jenkins is the one who ratted on Frederick Douglass and got him caught.
Yeah, when they were planning.
That's right, when they were planning, right?
Planning to escape.
That's planning to escape, right? Sandy, that's the same one who gave him the rabbit foot and told him, put it in you put this foot in, and you'll never be beaten. And Frederick Douglass, like, yeah, whatever, man. But he kept the foot, and we know about the fight that he had with Mr. Covey. So I'm gonna say that's right. That same Sandy Jenkins, the man who ratted on him, turned and got him turned in. Okay.
Could have had him killed.
Could have had him, yeah. Could have had him killed. Definitely. Right? At no time did he ever disparage, I'm going to say, Sandy Jenkins. He never called him a coward, or any kind of derogatory name. And when I was young, I always found that fascinating, but it was just one of those things, like, you just move on and whatever. And it's the same thing with all of these, Mary Jacobs, or like Aquino, Solomon Northrop, like, they had an understanding of people,
especially of the type of person you become
when you
exist in that type of system.
Yeah. That's right. When you are in that kind of reality, what that produces, what that makes.
Like we said before, that when you find yourself at those types of extremes, there really isn't a right answer.
That's right.
There really isn't. There isn't a playbook or a manual on what it is you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to act.
And so
there is, it's not that simple. So for those people, for the Sandy Jenkins and people like that, who found themselves faltering under, the weight of this, that isn't wrong.
Right. And it wasn't.
And it's not necessary. And it's not. You could say it's not right for Frederick Douglass to escape, because to do that could put other people at risk.
Which he did, because he wasn't by himself.
Well, he wasn't by himself.
Right.
But when you find yourself in that extreme, things like pride or shame don't really factor into it.
Right.
It's just how will you respond?
That's it.
And every single time, every person, who found themselves enslaved in that system had to ask themselves that question. And it's an individual. Every single time you excuse me, you may want to do something that can make your people proud, or make your family proud, and do stuff like that, or just make it easier for you to sleep at night, and all these little things that factor into that. But when it's you, and that situation is on you,
right?
There is no pride, there is no shame, there is no right, there is no wrong. There is, what are you going to do?
And that's the thing.
And that's the thing that hasn't changed.
Right.
Because our situation has changed.
Yes.
In some ways for the better, in some ways for the worse.
Right.
Because we're still having to ask ourselves these questions. Now, the idea that our history isn't one to be proud of. Right?
Well,
but that's kind of the idea here, is that we're not saying to take pride in your history when we say you have to walk with it. Right? Pride is optional. Shame is optional.
That's right.
We're only saying that you have to accept it. When you look at where we come from, and you look at our history and what's going on today, it's not about trying to find the right answer.
Correct. And there's a thing that John Henry Clark used to say, like, when you start your history at slavery, right, then everything after that would look like an accomplishment. And I understand where that is coming from. I understand where that is coming from. Because when you want to look at it in its totality, you will understand that yes, great kingdoms and all of those other great stuff that people have associated as positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have that as well, but not ever. Even when I was a child, and you know this, and I have never ever, and I still don't to this day,
Mm-hmm.
look at our period
Mm-hmm.
of enslavement as something to be ashamed of. I never. I have
Yeah,
never
so
felt.
I know a lot of people look at that and say, "Well, you're supposed to be proud of it."
Well, it's not that.
Like, yeah, like I said, it's
Yeah,
always on that.
it's on.
You
It's
had it had like you're trying to categorize, you're trying
right.
to put it in its place, and but that's not what this is.
And it never was that for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something about those people, and
I
how.
guess for you, it is a matter of pride.
Well, it's always been a matter of pride because they weren't liars. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
something. It's just something about.
that type of honesty, especially in the
Yes,
face of
especially
in the
in
midst of that.
right of especially when you take it to what was happening all around
Yeah,
them.
in the midst of all the
Yes,
what's going
and
on,
how it is that they still.
they were still honest.
Yes, and so I think. I mean, well, I guess you can say for me that's I have pride in that or
Yeah,
proud,
yeah. No, no one. Like I said, I'm not telling you not to be proud.
right.
I'm not telling you not
They
to
weren't
feel
delusional, and you're like,
ashamed
right,
or not to have that your feelings about these things shouldn't be simple. It
right,
shouldn't be just this one thing.
right.
It's a complicated
Mm-hmm,
issue to deal with. It's a
mm-hmm,
complicated burden to bear.
right.
But
This is something that was done. We understand that, and they gotta have a better understanding. Is that this is something that happened to them, okay? And they were laying a framework for us to understand, not even for us to be angry. I'm not for us to even be angry because there isn't. I'm not going to say there isn't a need, but there isn't a need for us to be angry. It's for us to learn and to understand that we were people
throughout that entire
throughout that entire
experience.
experience, regardless of what Mr. Covey thought,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or anyone else. We were people, and I'm going to show you that I am a man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you that I am a woman, and all of the trials and tribulations that I had to endure as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
as a man, you know, as as a as the product of a slave owning father
Mm-hmm.
and an enslaved mother. I'm that product, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you my experience being snatched from Isaka Benin and brought on this thing that I didn't even know what was called a ship, and thinking I'm going to be eaten alive, taken, taken from Benin, and that whole. I'm going to show you, because they all start the same way. I'll tell you. I know that you're not going to believe me. I know you're not going to believe what I tell you. Why would you believe me? Who believes the same? Who believes you? No one believes you, and no one is going to believe you. But guess what? I'm gonna do this anyway, and that's what they did. They laid out, and I think that we have we have now taken a lot of that for granted, or that you know, you know, uh, slavery isn't our history. It interrupted our history. You know, uh, slavery is that's white American history, or that's white people history. That's not
Mm-hmm.
our history.
It's like we said
You
before.
know.
You're trying to weaponize.
Mm-hmm,
More than that, you're doing something even worse. You're trying to pick and choose what part of the story you're going to learn from,
mm-hmm.
or what part of the story
Right.
matters.
And I'm like, haven't we done that? I mean, haven't we? We know what
No,
that experience is.
yeah, we've been victims of that.
Right. Of the picking and the choosing. That's how we got here.
Hmm.
Right?
Quite literally.
Quite literally. From the picking and the choosing. So I'm just saying,
Hmm.
I just And I
Yeah.
I still
So
take great offense, to
yeah.
whatever. So
So
yeah.
when when we look at Afrocentricity,
Mm-hmm.
we've often tried to, like we say, try to put it in a light to where it is applicable to everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think like one of the biggest crux of the issue is, like we said, is that those two opposing ideas
Mm-hmm.
of when we look at who we are we
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be proud of it? Are we supposed to be ashamed?
Mm-hmm.
Or everything that we come from, and we look at all, and it's like I think that's a really good point,
Mm-hmm.
and that these things, like I said, aren't to be whatever reaction you
Right.
have to it
Mm-hmm.
is as informative as anyone else's reaction.
That's
There
right.
is no right
Right. Oh,
way
that's
to
right.
take this,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to take it and you have to accept it,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to change this burden. And because that's what it is at the
Right.
beginning when you're learning about it, it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult, it's hard, having to hear and read these stories, having to and see the impact that they're having still to
To
this
this day.
day, that
That's
we're
right.
existing in today. It's hard to hear
Mm-hmm.
these things, without having one of those gut immediate
Right.
reactions. Like we say, we're not telling you not to have that
Right. Of
reaction,
course.
but we're
Of
saying that
course.
you have to turn these things into something constructive,
Mm-hmm.
right? He said Frederick Douglass took his story and told it,
Mm-hmm.
right, against his better judgment,
As a matter,
right?
yeah, because
Yeah, because
when
who's going to believe me? What's the
right.
point of even writing this down,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's even personally having
Right.
to go back through that trauma
Right.
and put it, to
Mm-hmm.
paper. All of these things, using that and making it into something constructive,
Mm-hmm.
making it to something that we can use to build and to move. That is what Afrocentricity, I think, is meant to do,
Mm-hmm.
is to try to look at our history, the whole of it,
Mm-hmm.
and see that we have played as big, if not a bigger role in shaping our own, history and our
Mm-hmm.
own cultural identity than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding, where that comes from
Mm-hmm.
and what that cultural identity
Right.
is and how we can shift and or change that into something more constructive.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the big things I think that we touched on over, our conversations is being the type of people
Mm-hmm.
that we need to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to make use of this history, to
Mm-hmm.
make use of these
Mm-hmm.
tools, right? And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that we have in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
because there is still this need to
Mm-hmm.
be acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
There's still this need to be accepted, to be seen, in their eyes as how we see ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
want them to see us the way we see ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be understood on that level. And it's a feeling that I can't say that I'm unsympathetic towards. I completely understand it,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not how things are going to change. That's not how the things are going to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and because that's, like we say, progress is a choice. Evolution is a state of being. It's
Right.
what nature
Does.
does.
That's
Things
right.
are going to change, but progress,
Progress. Mm-hmm.
moving forward, that is a human
Mm-hmm.
construct, and we define what that is, and
Mm-hmm.
we define how we get there,
That's right.
right? As much as we possibly can. And one of the biggest quotes I say from Dune Messiah that I think is most applicable here is that when he talks about uh, trying to reinvent life,
Yeah.
when he
Okay.
says
Mm-hmm.
that I tried to reinvent life, not knowing that it's already been invented,
That's right.
right? Or it's just, one of the axioms for me is that, like, you can't build peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's already been built.
Mm-hmm.
You can only reach it.
Right.
You can only attain
Thinking
it.
it, right? Strive for it.
That's what
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what we do in participating in this system, and of having no choice,
Mm-hmm.
to participate in this system, it is, I feel, trying to reinvent life.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to build peace,
Mm-hmm.
because we're trying to get to that place. We're trying to build the building. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to create the system
Right.
that can acknowledge and accept us and stuff like that. But
You have to be the people,
this
right?
system
Right. You have to
is
be
not
that,
designed for
right?
that.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think, well, how do you redesign the system?
Mm-hmm.
There is no building that can do that.
That's right.
There is no law that is going to recontextualize what this is, or what it has done, and how it propagates
Mm-hmm.
itself. You can't. The system cannot correct itself. Not like that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it won't change that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said before, like, you can have the building, you can
Mm-hmm.
have the law, you can have all these things, but if you are not the type of people that you need to be, then all it is, it's a prop, it's a stage
Right.
play. It's You're trying to reinvent, you're trying to build, and the system, the true system, will always resist that,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the system it's people.
Mm-hmm. You
It's
have to
people.
be the people, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
because we've had this conversation many, many times over the years, and I used to say that if you build it, they will come, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to say that, right? Because when you see something like that, that's the thing that you can touch and you can feel, and it's real for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're like, well, who are going to be the people to build that? You have to be that already
Mm-hmm.
in order to even in order to do something, to construct something like that.
Like I said,
Yeah,
and once you do that, you'll find that you won't need the building.
exactly.
Because, like, it's like
Right.
and like it's like the Montgomery bus boycott. Like,
Yeah,
we've
you
talked
talk
about
about
many a
it.
times before. The Montgomery bus boycott, if it were to be truly effective,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it worked.
Right.
We got to sit in there where we wanted on the bus,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like you said, our biggest mistake was getting back
Back
on
on the
the
bus,
bus,
right?
right? Because it should have never been about sitting at the
No, the
front of
front
the
of the bus. That's
bus.
right.
That's not what
Mm-hmm.
this should have been about. It should have been about being the type of people who don't need to ride your
That's
buses.
right.
We don't need to
That's
ride
right.
your buses. We don't need to be anywhere on it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what it's constructed on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to ignore it or patch it over, you can do all that, but
Mm-hmm.
it will not change it.
Right.
The systemic oppression that we have to face will
Mm-hmm.
just transform.
Right.
It will transform. It will move and shift in a
Mm-hmm.
different way. Now your buses don't even reach particular communities.
Right.
It doesn't go where it needs to go. Now
Mm-hmm.
our jobs are limited, to where the bus takes us.
Mm-hmm.
And now our prospects are limited. All these things are
Right.
contributing factors into keeping us where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been the problem. It's not where we're sitting on the bus, where we're
Right.
positioned. I mean, it's a problem when you're taking a bus.
Right. Obviously, right.
But if you become the type of people who don't need to
That's
ride
right. That bus, right?
then it doesn't matter where you're sitting, and it doesn't matter where it takes you.
Mm-hmm.
If you, like I said, they were like ride shares,
Mm-hmm.
things, and
Look,
people, it was a
oh
whole,
yeah,
a whole
look,
thing.
yeah, we had a whole thing going on. Right.
That's what I mean.
Right.
But that's the thing. We want the people.
Mm-hmm.
We want the people then to truly take advantage of what we were building.
Mm-hmm. Because we were so busy. We were looking at what we didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you understand where that is coming from.
Yeah, because you didn't have it.
Because you didn't have it. And as not only did you didn't have it, you were forced to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And not have it.
It is being deliberately withheld from you.
That's right. Like your wages and tax dollars and everything, it's being taken from you to provide these services.
For this bus that
That's
you have
right.
to sit at the back of.
That's right. For the bus and for the roads and for the good schools that are across the tracks. You paid for that over here
Mm-hmm.
in the bottoms. You paid for that over there. So you feel like I should have access to that school.
And
across
you
that track.
should.
And you should.
You absolutely
You
should.
should.
But how it was built plays as big a role in us trying to go toward it.
Yeah.
It was built on your suffering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know that there's a part of you that like, well, I want to reap the benefits of my suffering.
That's right.
But it won't change the fact that you are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how much you're able to get out of it. That's how this system like propagates itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. It works from stealing and taking from people. That's how America got this rich.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for generations.
Yeah, I mean, think
And
about
even
it.
now,
Even now,
still
right?
not giving you what you're owed.
That's right. That's
Still,
right.
you know,
Right.
not doing what needs to be done to provide you with a healthy way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it is at this distance, so we can say that even if you were being paid everything that you want to be paid, there's still going to be a sweatshop, you know, in China that's building your phones.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to be using slave labor, you know, to build up cities in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
There's
you're still in that hole
that's
in the middle of the Congo.
that's what I'm saying. It's yeah.
You
So
know,
the
right.
suffering is just going to be shifted
That's it. Right.
because that's what this system is,
And for me, and with
and that's what
Afrocentricity,
Afrocentricity allows for.
And that's the
More than
thing that it
anything.
wants to address. And I think that that's the total in looking at things in its totality. It like I say, it encompasses. You know, it doesn't. I'm going to say exclude. You know, because that the suffering of the children, you might as well say, in the Congo, you know, digging up the cobalt or whatever it is, that impacts us.
It impacts everyone.
Yes, you know, we feel that, you know, and the idea that, you know, well, I don't care about, you know, the sweatshops in China, or, you know, or the the people from Nepal who are dying in the Middle East to build up Qatar, or whatever the case may be.
But like we said, no problem exists in and of itself.
That's it.
If you're truly trying to address the
Right.
problems,
If you're trying, if you
all
want,
of that.
that's the thing. If you want to get rid of oppression, right? Because because we know it needs to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, well, it needs to go for us and screw everybody else. Because understand something here, and this is what I have come to realize. You know, particularly when we look at our relationship with Europeans. Please understand that the first peoples who they oppressed were right there, right next door to them. Were their own neighbors. You know, right there in Europe.
That's what this system does.
Right.
And like we said, not even right. We are safe from this.
That's right.
That's the greatest, that's the biggest, like you could say, recontextualization of our history. Because where there are kings, there are peasants.
Right.
Right? And you can say what you want on how the African peasants lived as opposed to the European peasants.
But you were still a peasant nonetheless.
It's a peasant.
Nonetheless. Right.
You are under a system that takes what it is that you want to do in life and uses it to prop up someone else's way of life. Keeping you here so they can be there. And for you to be up there, somebody has to be down here. That's what the world is. That is what it's been ever since we've crafted and created society. And ever since we've, crafted and created, there's been Ptahhoteps and Aristotles and Plato's to tell us that there is something missing here. There is something wrong here. This discussion is not a new one. That's another thing about Afrocentricity, is that, it's not about recontextualizing slavery.
Right. Right.
It's about recontextualizing our history. All of it.
Right.
Then, now, and forever. All of it is a part of that story. And when you look at history, and you're not trying to weaponize, you're not being delusional, you're not trying to lie, and you look at it, and you look at the role that we play in, like you say, in shaping our history.
Right. We are participants.
We are participants in shaping our history. When you look at that, It's not about, like you said, not about taking pride. It's not about being ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
It's about looking at that and saying that even then,
Mm-hmm.
the questions remained.
Right.
The conversation was being had
That's right.
about
And the
how
conversations were
we.
being had. That's the
Mhm,
thing. You know, like I tell you about one of my favorite books.
mhm,
We have not read this book together. I read it many, many years ago, and it's still my favorite book.
mhm.
Okay. It's Heliodorus's An Ethiopian Story. That's how the title would
Yeah.
translate. And in that book, you know, a part of the book they were questioning some of the social problems that we are dealing with today. The same social, like the homosexuality, manhood, all that stuff was in the
Mhm,
book. And this book was published back in the bonus BC, whatever time, whatever frame,
mhm.
like 4th BC, whatever it was. Okay? They were talking about it then. So if they were talking about it, we know. It's all of it's an old problem.
Mhm. It's a very old problem.
It's an old
It's a
problem.
problem born at the inception of society.
Yeah.
When people ask themselves, what are they owed
Mm-hmm.
for their work,
Mm-hmm.
for what they do, and how they do?
Mm-hmm.
What are they owed from a society?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this, and us being humans trying to categorize that,
Mm-hmm.
trying to create a system out of that, can never truly encompass the full feeling of a
Mm-hmm.
human being, because now when you're creating a system of value, your system will value a particular part of humanity over others,
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to define how to give people what they are owed
Mm-hmm.
for their work in the creation and maintenance of the society, right? Well, some people work more, or some people contribute more, and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And now your society values what people can contribute.
Right. Period. It has nothing to do with the more. It's just simply
Yeah,
what you feel that they can contribute.
what
Right.
they can contribute,
Mm-hmm.
and the biggest and greatest contributors are those who are able to maintain the system of contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your kings. Those are your presidents.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones who truly benefit from this system,
Mm-hmm.
because they're able to maintain it and manage it
Right.
and see and pick where and what goes where.
Right. And we have come to realize, I think more so, not that we didn't realize it before, but I feel like it's being crystallized now about the worker,
Mm-hmm.
the essential worker, just the worker period, and how it is that it's their work
Mm-hmm.
that keeps this afloat. It's not the president who manages or whatever. It's not you all. This is why you have these CEOs and the elites or whatever, how they are responding to the workers who want the $15 an hour or 20, just that, you know, we all quit.
This is,
Four, five.
like I
No, we're
said,
not going to
it's
work. And,
an
and now it's
old,
everything is
old
is, is coming
problem.
down.
It's like
Hmm?
when we read, I forget the name of it. What was it right there? It's right there. Civilization and the Stars.
Okay, yeah.
Right, and then there's that part when they talked about um, the Babylonian kings,
Mm-hmm.
and how oracle and prophecy was a very major part in that society.
Mm-hmm.
And when a sibyl at the time would pass down a oracle that said that uh, a particular king was going to die,
Right.
that that king would abdicate their
Throne,
throne
right.
to a layperson,
Yes.
a commoner,
Right.
and that person would then be king, and be get to live the lavish life of a king
Right.
until the day comes,
Right. And then when that,
and they will be executed
right.
to fulfill the
We'll see.
prophecy, and
Right.
then the old king would just retake their throne.
Mm-hmm. That's how crazy this is.
That's
That's how crazy this is. That's
that
crazy.
was then.
Right.
That was
Then, right.
then
Then.
when the ancient aliens walked amongst us, right? Those were the people,
right,
right, who have all the mysterious, crazy technology and all
right,
the stuff that might be from them.
right, right.
The killed the farmers because the oracle said so.
Yeah,
That's what this is.
right.
That's how your values get so mangled and tangled up that you pervert
Mm-hmm.
what it means to be alive.
That's right.
Because you live in a society of contribution,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone, is contributing to everything, and you think that will create a sense of hegemony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of community,
Right.
of people coming together and all. But yeah, at the beginning, but when you try to make it into a system,
right,
and said that this goes here and that goes there, and you stay here and I'm up here and all that stuff, when you decided to do that,
they create that class.
yeah,
Well,
when you tried to do that, it went from a community to a corporation.
Sounds familiar? Right.
And that is unsustainable. That's why we say that America is capitalism is like the perfect distillation of everything the world has been. Right? It is not a new problem we're dealing with.
That's
It is a very old problem.
Right.
And it's not a new lesson that we need to learn.
That's right.
It's an old lesson. That if you're going to create a society, it cannot value the contributions that a human provides. It must value the human over anything else.
That's right.
The contributions, the community, the profits, all of that comes after.
That's right.
The human being.
That's right. Not before.
Not before.
And that's
like,
been our long problem.
If that becomes the axiom, if that becomes the thing, then like I said, nothing takes precedent over a human life.
That's right.
Because like that is how that's where everything comes from.
Yeah.
Because
it's like you have to value the root, and that root becomes the tree, and the tree produces the fruit.
Yeah, but
life, it's the whole thing.
Life is the whole thing that breeds
right.
God. That's where God came from us being alive and being perplexed by that, and what that means. That's where we come from, the ideas of humanity,
right?
From life, from us,
right? If you don't observing, and if you don't value the human,
and
right?
when you try to commodify that,
yes,
you create a corrupted, perverted sense of being,
right?
That no one can truly benefit from, because everything is circumstantial and short term,
right? And we understand. I'm not gonna say we understand. We know that experience. We know what it is to not have our humanity, our humanness, our human life not valued. All they want is what we contribute. And after that, well, we know what happened to us. Inside. That's right. We know what happened to us when we didn't, quote unquote, make a contribution. Okay? And that same type of mentality, it's still prevalent with us today. You have, if you don't have a job, if you're not this, you have to earn respect, and we even talk that way even now. We don't see the humanity. Yes,
we haven't learned.
We haven't learned, and I think that's the thing that has really opened for me in my recontextualizing and understanding of Afrocentricity. It's not just this one-way relationship. It's not a one-way history. It's not any of those things. It encompasses so much more.
And our
And to deal with that.
yeah, our history, our culture does not exist on this spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a category.
Right.
It's not something that you can break down and simplify.
Mm-hmm.
It is complicated. It is layered.
It is
It is
ongoing.
us. Yes, it is ongoing.
That's
It
right.
is who we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Everything hinges on that, on the present, on this moment.
Right.
This moment now defines our history. What we are now defines who we were.
That's
That's
right.
how it works.
That's right.
It's not who we were don't define who
Mm-hmm.
we are.
That's
It's
right.
the other way around.
That's right. Who we are is yes.
It's who we have been.
That's right. And that's
And to change our history,
mm-hmm.
to progress, we have to change what we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Afrocentricity is. For Black people, it is being able to look at our history
Mm-hmm.
and for what all that means, and being able to use that to change who we are,
Mm-hmm.
to accept what we are,
Mm-hmm.
and to use it to change it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's not about, like you said, it's not it's not about pride, it's not about shame, it's not about weaponizing, it's not about categorizing.
Mm-hmm.
It is just like you said, it's recontextualized.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Afrocentricity is. It's a recontextualization of the Black experience
Mm-hmm.
into something constructive,
Mm-hmm.
into something that we can use to be the type of people that we want to be. Because at the end of the day, there is only one surefire way toward extinction, and that's evolution.
Yes.
If you want something to end permanently,
mm-hmm.
then you can't kill it, you can't genocide it,
right?
You can't ignore it. You have to evolve beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
And if that thing wants to exist with you,
mm-hmm.
then it will have to evolve. It either dies as it is or changes and becomes something else to continue to exist with you. And in that, you have changed its nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's true progress. You change a people,
mm-hmm.
not a system,
right?
Not a building, a people.
Right.
Change a people, and that it starts with, it starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with something like this, like we're just doing here, trying to reach a people,
mm-hmm.
right? That's what this is. So, yeah, that's the basis. That's how things have changed. So, because at the very beginning, I said we did this. I said we did it for us,
right?
Just so we can have something to say that, oh, okay, it's supposed to be like Doom,
right?
right? Like when you get frustrated, when you get upset, you can have something and you can look at and that you can hear and be like, okay,
right?
There is some sense in the world somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And how things have changed now is that even in this small, limited capacity that we are able to reach people, it's not solely about us.
Yes, that's correct.
It can't be for our personal edification. It's not our personal repository of sense anymore.
Right.
It can't be that. It has to be. It has to be a space for anyone who wants to reach that type. Not to say that we've reached it, but for anyone who wants to reach a place of recontextualization, of being able to look at themselves and accept it. Right. Fully and totally. That's what all of this is about. That's what Afrocentricity is about, especially for us. Right. That's one of the things that I love about, about us is that we take all the pieces of everything that has ever happened to us and we can make it about us.
That's right.
Right. That's one of the reasons why I love like voodoo. Right. Like we took this thing that was inflicted upon us, right? Your gods, your saints, all
Mm-hmm.
these things, and we
We merited.
married it with
Yeah.
who we are, and
Mm-hmm.
created like out of that tragedy came something constructive, came a system of belief
Mm-hmm.
that can help people, that
Mm-hmm.
helps people,
Yes.
and that's what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about you say it's like you said, it's not about throwing it away. You
Mm-hmm.
can't forget it.
Right.
You can't walk against it. It's about moving with
With
it.
it. Mm-hmm.
For everyone
Mm-hmm.
who needs that
Mm-hmm.
tool, that cane, that stepping stone that can allow you the first step on the road to progress. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like we said, this is level zero.
Right. Right.
This is level zero.
Right. Right.
But the word is in the negatives.
Yes.
You know,
Oh yes. Right.
the word is in the negatives.
Mm-hmm.
But this is zero.
Mm-hmm.
This is not even step one to creating something healthy and sustainable. But if we can get to here
Right.
at least, get to here, then we can create that
Mm-hmm.
basis for all of us to stand on. That, to create something that values humanity
Mm-hmm.
and being alive, a human being,
Mm-hmm.
more than what we can contribute.
Tribute. Right.
So, yeah,
Yes.
if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. And once again, thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you so much.